Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Stories That Inspire Us. I happen to be on my personal page. You know, those glitches always pop up, but you know what? I never let it stop us because you know what? We have an amazing story to share with you this evening. Again, welcome, everyone. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. And you know, sometimes when you meet someone, you just kind of click with them. And my guest this evening, we have so many different similar interests. She's a former paralegal, I'm a paralegal, and we are going to chat podcasts. But first, I want to introduce my guest. She has, number one, the smile that will light up your day, and her aura, her personality matches that. And I'm just so excited to welcome to today's podcast, Aeoliana Elliott. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Janice. That was so sweet. Thank
Well,
you.
you're very welcome. And along with similar interests, you are a podcast strategist for female entrepreneurs. And I love in your bio how you said um, you assist female entrepreneurs who go from clueless and kind of frazzled to a point where they are able to grow their podcasts. That is amazing. Oh, I think you froze up a little bit. See, glitches happen.
Lush.
Oops, I heard you a little bit there. We lost you. You're still frozen. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yeah. Oh, I am?
You are
What's
frozen.
happening?
I can hear you though.
Can hear me?
Okay, now I can see. Now,
Okay.
yeah,
Technology is great, isn't it?
it is. It's awesome. So as I was saying about your being a podcast strategist
Mhm,
and you help female entrepreneurs to kind
mhm.
of grow their podcast. And by the way, I'll have what she's having. And what I think is exciting about that is we never, well, I shouldn't say never, but sometimes when we start a podcast, like for instance, when my sister and I started our first podcast, Two Sisters, I had just called I tell this story, I've told so many times. I'm like, it was during COVID.
Mhm.
We had always wanted to start a business together. We started the business. Then I said, hey, you know, everyone's listening to podcasts. We should start a podcast. She said, okay, get it going. And she hung up. Like, honestly, I had no clue. Eventually figured it out. But what I'm trying to get at is when you're a female entrepreneur, and if you're a male entrepreneur, of course, and you have a passion and you want to share that passion, and just such an amazing way to reach different guests, different people all over the world who
Yep.
want, need, and may not know that they need to hear your story. It's fascinating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of my biggest driving forces when I'm talking to podcasters. And I actually just spoke to someone a few days ago about this, is so many people, when they start their podcast, they really don't have an idea of where they want it to go. What do you see for your podcast in 5 months, in 5 years? There, a lot of people, when they start their podcast, they're literally just throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks, and they don't really know, well, how can this help me? What do I want to do with this? And so one of the first things I tell my clients when we're talking about it is, even before you think about the name, even before you think about the cover art or the description or anything like that, you need to set goals and you need to define what success looks like for you and for your podcast. And it's so important because a lot of people, when they're doing podcasts, they're comparing themselves to podcasters that have been around for a really long time, or
Mhm.
podcasts that are really, really popular or that went viral, you know. And a lot of times, you know, as females or as entrepreneurs in general, when you're doing a podcast, it's to help your business or to get a message out there, and you're
Mhm.
doing it all on your own. And sometimes we don't think about all the background work and all the people that, you know, it's possible these other podcasters have a team of people helping them do their podcasts, someone for marketing, someone for promotion, someone to, produce it, to publish it, all of those things where we're doing it on our own. And so if we take a step back and really look at what do we want this podcast to do for our business or for ourselves, if you're doing a podcast strictly to get your message across, what do I want it to look like in 5 years? What does success look like for me? And sometimes when you're just starting out, success is as easy as, hey, I set out to publish 3 episodes this month and I accomplished that. And that's great. And just like goals in our regular lives change over time, your goals for your podcast and your purpose for your podcast can change as well as you get better, as you get more experience, but you don't want to come right out of the gate and say, okay, my success means that I'm going to get 1,000 downloads in my first episode and I'm going to go viral and everybody's going to find me. And, that's not a good definition of success. I mean, eventually you want to get there, but podcasting is long form. A lot of times it's only until maybe the last 5 years or so, 5 or 7 years, where podcasts are now searchable on Google. They didn't used to be. So nobody found you unless they actually searched on iTunes or Spotify. So it wasn't like someone searched for, a keyword or something and podcasts popped up like they're doing now. Someone actually had to know who you were in order to be able to find you. So just having that mindset and having that presence of mind where you know what you're trying to accomplish with it. And that way, when you have those benchmarks, okay, I completed this part. My podcast is successful. I did this. My podcast is successful. And, that's one of the most important things I tell my clients from the beginning. That's the most important thing when you start, is to know that.
And thank you so much for that, because, I think when I know, obviously when my sister and I started together, we did not do that. We just knew that we had this love of wellness through fitness and nutrition, and we wanted to share that. But we did it in a way, like, for instance, I consider myself to be a live podcaster. I'm obviously live on Facebook right now. And I have the video, I have the audio, I can upload the audio, I can upload the video, which, now, of course, I can do with my eyes closed. And one thing that I think a lot of I know that I did, and I've talked with other podcasters as well, is we focus on, like, excuse me, everything has to be perfect.
Yes. Yes.
And honestly, I was worried that my internet service wasn't going to hold out because we had some flickering going on upstairs. We had a little bit of a glitch, but I think we focus on too much that things have to be perfect when they don't, because a lot of people, again, that I've chatted with, and I've done a lot of research, I've been podcasting now for, gosh, I guess it's been about 4 years, is that they love to see the raw vulnerability.
Yes. Yes. That is one thing I talk about this a lot. And if there's anything positive, one of the positive things that COVID taught us is that we are no longer looking for the fake. We no longer want the fake. We want real. We want to see the nitty gritty. We want to see, the struggle. We want to see the problems. And so many of us, I'm type A, I'm like super driven. And most of us don't want to show that side of ourselves. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want anyone to see us struggle, because we grew up, I know for me, I grew up in an environment where I had to be successful. There was no other way. There was no room for failure. And while that made me strong, it also caused a lot of issues for me, to where it's taken me a long time to realize that I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to do things exactly the way people expect me to do them. I just have to be myself, show up as myself, people throw this word around a lot, but be my authentic self.
Mhm.
And, you know, the right people are going to hear what I have to say and my message is going to get to them. And the wrong people, I'm not meant to talk to them anyway.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people end up thinking that they have to be perfect, and that stops you, that blocks you, that causes you to not want to move forward because you're constantly thinking, well, if I do this, then this is going to happen. Or if I do this, then this is going to happen. Instead of just getting your feet wet, getting dirty, getting into the messy middle and just doing it. And
Mhm.
eventually everything will work itself out. And like I was saying before, people are no longer following or looking for the fake. You know, the filters, the AI, as great as all of that is, and the technological advances, as great as they are, you can't connect with that. And people are looking for connection. They're looking to see themselves in other people, in the
Mm.
people they listen to, in the people they follow. And I think that's been one of the biggest blessings from COVID, if I can call it that,
Mhm.
is that we're no longer, you know, in the microwave mentality of quick fix, and everything has to be perfect and everything has to be filtered and airbrushed and everything like that. Like right now, I'm trying to move my head to get the sun out of my face and it's not working. So, you know, like things like that, you know, like I'm going to end up in your video with lights in my face. There's nothing I can do. And it's okay. It's okay because, like I said, your message, whatever you have to say, if there's something that was put in your heart to say, the right people are going to listen to it, gravitate towards it, and it's going to affect them. And the wrong people, it's just not. And there's nothing you can do about that. Just being your true self will bring the right people to you, if that makes sense.
Oh gosh, it absolutely does. You know, you had mentioned, being your authentic self, and I don't think we give ourselves enough credit sometimes for being our true authentic selves. Again, I go back to the podcast with my sister, and I think we have almost 700 episodes. And I eventually learned how to edit the audio and the video, but I don't do that. I've done it for a couple of clients, but I don't do that because I wanted to remain my true authentic self to how
Mm-hmm.
I started, because I felt as though, and maybe you've come across this, I felt that the story that I wanted to share, whether it was with the Two Sisters podcast or my business podcast, Truly Your VA, and of course, this is my third podcast, Stories That Inspire Us, was to really just be myself. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. In what people don't understand is I am a little shy by nature. Like if I was in a crowded room right now, I don't know that I would be, well, maybe I would be, but the thought of being, for instance, excuse me, in a crowded room
Mm-hmm.
or on a stage and, a whole bunch of people, in the audience sounds a little intimidating to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
people have said to me, but you're so natural, on video or on the audio, you sound great, except for the coughing thing. I have coughing
Yeah,
issues.
I
But
got you. I'm gonna start coughing in a minute too, so we're there.
but it just goes to show you that if you show your true authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
that that will resonate more, and a lot of times kind of solidify the message that you're trying to or the story that you're trying to tell, or for instance, obviously having you on as a guest. And somebody said to me once, and also to my sister and I, why would you want to have a guest on that's like in the same field as you? And to me, that's exciting because we
Mm-hmm.
learn from each other. But more importantly, it shows the camaraderie in a
Mm-hmm.
particular field. And, you know, I think that can grow in ways that perhaps you don't even expect. Like,
Right.
I see us collaborating on
Yeah.
future projects together, just
Yeah.
saying. Um, so who
Yeah.
knows that will take you?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Collaboration is one of the, like, I've been listening to podcasts for a while now, and just the sheer amount of collaboration and support that I've found in the podcasting community is amazing to me. The fact that people aren't afraid to share their audiences with each other, the fact that people understand that my audience may gain something from you that maybe I've said a million times, but you're going to say it in a way that's going to, hit a light bulb in them that they couldn't have with me. It's so much more open. It's so much more um welcoming, and collaborations can take any number of forms. I mean, you having people on your podcast is a collaboration. You posting on each other's posts is collaboration. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And like you said, we learn more from each other, and our audiences and our people are that much more enriched by the more people that you bring in. I
Hmm.
mean, sure. I think, growing up, there was always this mindset of you have to be in competition, you have to always be the best. And what I've learned in the past few years is collaboration over competition.
Hmm.
It's when we all work together, things get done a lot better. I think it's I don't know, there's like a metaphor or something about ships, and like the tide raises all ships, I think is what it is. The same tide raises all ships. It's like we want to be that tide. We don't want to be the one that brings everybody down. You want everything to be a collaborative process, because we grow, we get better, things get better. We've worked through life fighting and competing for years, and that hasn't gotten us anywhere. And in my opinion, it's time we start working together. We start looking at how we can make someone else's life better,
Hmm.
and in turn make our lives better. But the main focus isn't making our life better, it's what can I do to help someone else. And the bonus is that my life ends up getting better in the process.
Ah, oh my gosh, that is so true. I'm just double checking the connection. Looks like everything is fine here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm good on my end too.
okay, good, good. That is so true because if, for instance, and I always, and I work full time as a paralegal. Now I have been I'm back at work full time for about 8 months now, and I still do my podcasting. And I absolutely love it. And, also being a podcast VA, I'm able to, like, if I can't do something, I want to know who I can refer
Yes.
that person to, but refer with confidence and saying, yes, I know this person. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you would definitely benefit from working with them. And that's all a part of the collaboration over competition. I love how you kind of put that together there.
Yeah, yeah. I've always enjoyed that aspect of it. When I started seeing that more, it really resonated with me, because I've never been one to be very competitive. I mean, like I said, I'm type A. I'm competitive by nature, but when it comes to business, it's not something that I enjoy doing. Like, I don't like jumping over people and, going over people to get what I want. I think there's plenty, I mean, they say it in dating. They're like, there's plenty of fish in the sea. I think in business, there's plenty of people out there. There's no way that one person, there's billions and billions of people in the world. There's no way that one person is going to be able to service all billions or however many people we have in the world right now. It's
Mhm.
impossible.
Right.
So when you collaborate, you end up helping each other to reach those other people that maybe you can't reach them, but maybe someone else can. And when we work together, it's fostering that community, that group dynamic, where it's another thing COVID taught us is that we are not individual people. Like we need that sense of community. And that's why podcasts blew up so much during COVID, because we were isolated. So many of us couldn't see or talk to or, you know, be in the places that we were normally used to being, like even work. You know, none of us thought that being isolated from work would be a bad thing, because a lot of people dislike their jobs and dislike going to their jobs. But you
Mhm.
take that away and now they don't have those interactions. Now what do you do? You know, and so we learn that we are meant to be in a community. We are meant to be with other people. We are meant to share our lives in a community. And that doesn't happen when you're constantly competing. That breaks down relationships. It's only when you collaborate and you work together that you're able to build on those relationships, foster those relationships, and move forward in that community aspect.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I want to go back to something. I have so many questions to ask you. I've been taking
Yeah.
all the notes. I want to go back to when we were chatting about being our authentic selves.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned something about your earlier childhood or your earlier years. And I think that's worth mentioning because, I'm number five out of six children. And, all of my older siblings are so very successful, each one very unique. And then you get to I'm number five, and then there's one after me. And then it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And I think I put that pressure or that perception on myself that I had to do something. I'm like, no, I don't have to do anything, but I want to do something. And
Mhm.
I fell in love with podcasting. I fell in love with storytelling. I am working on my own book. Hope to have it done before I'm 65. That's about 3 years away.
Yeah, that's
I'm
plenty of time. That's plenty of
Yeah,
time. You got it.
I'm
You got
dragging
this. You
yeah,
got
I'm
this.
dragging my feet, but the point I'm trying to make is, I think we have these false perceptions of ourselves that
Mhm.
I was comparing myself to my siblings.
So it's
And
funny that you say that, because I'm a firstborn. So I have two younger brothers. So for me, it was different. For me, it was, I have to be a good example. So I went to college, I, graduated, I got a job right away. Working right away. I didn't do the fun stuff. I didn't like take a year to go travel the world. I didn't do any of that. I went straight from school, like graduated high school, went straight into college, working, graduated college, went straight into work, and have worked ever since, and have never really taken any time for myself. And it's not that I felt, well, I guess, yeah, in a way, like I felt the pressure of, I'm the firstborn in all of my family. I was the firstborn. So whether it was my parents, my cousins, like I was the first one. Um, so there was that pressure of living up to that firstborn status, I guess.
Mhm,
And with my brothers, like neither one of them went to college. So they were just, they're like, we're working and we've got trades, and, I'm gonna do my own thing. And, you know,
mhm,
they never thought, well, I can't say they never thought, because I've never had this conversation with them. But in my perception, they never thought about the consequences of their actions, or they never put themselves in a position to say, I have these expectations of myself and I have to do this because everyone's expecting me to. No one told me that these were the expectations for me. I put those expectations on myself. And in turn, it ended up being really difficult for me. Even now, like I'm 45, and even now it's hard for me to take time for myself, to take it easy. Like I know we had talked previously that when I was working full time, I just lost my job last Friday. And so now I'm like, well, what do I do now? I'm, actively looking for work now and interviewing again after not doing that for 8 years. Now I have to jump back in and redo it all. And now I have to look and say, well, what do I want my new season to look like?
Mhm.
Do I want to go work in an office, or do I want to look for paralegal work from home? What do I want to do? What do I want it to look like? And I've been able to shed those expectations of perfection and competition and always doing the right thing, and look more now into what do I want for myself? What do like I'm not 20 years old, what my energy, my all of those things, I don't have those anymore. I don't have the mental energy or the mental capacity to work 10-hour days like I used to when I was younger. I have a family now. I don't want to be in an office for 10 hours a day.
Mm.
So now when I'm interviewing, I'm like, I need to look at all those things. My choices, my boundaries, my requirements are different now than they were 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm.
And my expectations of myself, the more I learn about myself, my expectations are changing. I don't have to be the perfect person. I just have to be who I am, the best me. I'm not in competition with anyone but myself and who I was yesterday. We tell our son that all the time. It's like, you're not compete. He plays hockey. You're not competing with anyone but yourself. If every time you step on that ice, you're better than the last time you stepped on that ice, that's an improvement. That's progress. And, his coaches, one of their mottos is progress over perfection.
Mhm.
And as an 11-year-old, like, I think that's amazing that they're being taught. I mean, he's got 12, like 8 to 12-year-olds on his team that they run the gamut. And for those kids to learn at this age that progress is more important than the perfection, that's
Mhm.
not anything I learned when I was growing up. I never learned that it was okay to make mistakes. I never learned that it was okay to not be perfect and not do everything perfectly. And the fact that kids nowadays are learning that mistakes are par for the course. You're going to make mistakes. It's a part of life. If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything. You learn from those mistakes. That's what they're for. Like
Mhm.
for me, that's awesome. Even if he never got up, I mean, and he plays like a maniac, it's insane. But even if he didn't, just learning those simple lessons, and it's not simple because we as adults haven't learned things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and that's another thing I like to infuse is that mindset, that understanding that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be perfect. And that inner child in you that had to be perfect when you were younger is going to thank you now that you're an adult and you're realizing I don't have to do it all right. I was fine just being myself. I was perfect just the way I was. I didn't have to I didn't have to prove anything. I just
Mm.
had to be me.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you this because this is somewhat funny. My husband and I were chatting, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, and a subject came up, and I said, "Well, I was just being me." We laugh at that because, think of that statement in terms of, obviously we're talking about podcasting
Mhm.
and different careers and how you go forward and our different perceptions. I mean, think about being yourself for a moment. I work in a law office. Everybody knows I love kickboxing.
Mm.
I talk about kickboxing all the time. Your hockey,
Yep.
I'm figure skating.
I love figure skating. I can't do either of them, but I love figure skating.
Oh, I sink. My brother's the one who's the
I
gold
I
medalist
can't. No,
champion.
I can't. I can't do it at all.
And no, folks, I cannot ice skate, just saying.
No, me neither. And my son plays hockey. He's been playing since he was 4. And yeah, no, can't get on the ice at all. Mm-mm. Nope.
Um, what what would you say is one thing that you'd like, or maybe it's a combination of things of something that has inspired you in your business that maybe you had a perception of, and you maybe you know, set out to do something and thought it was going to go one way, but it went the other, and the other way was totally not what you expected. What would your advice or what would your comment be about that? As someone that wants to start a podcast and they're like, oh, I don't know.
My biggest tip for that would be find someone that has already done it that you can ask questions of what to expect. I think a lot of times people get into doing a podcast or are thinking about it, and there's so much information out there that you really get overwhelmed with the tech that you have to use and what you have to learn and things like that. Whereas if you talk to someone who's already done it, even if they've only done a few episodes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a pro. It can
Mhm.
be someone that you know that already launched their podcast and is doing it. They'll be better able to tell you, this is what you can expect. This is how it worked for me. And then at the end of the day, make the decision for yourself. Like, I have a business coach, and she's always telling us, she gives us all kinds of information. She doesn't gatekeep anything. She gives us everything. And
Mhm.
at the beginning, she always tells us, I'm going to give you all this information, and then it's up to you to decide what you're going to take and what you're going to leave. Not everything I'm going to tell you is going to resonate with you. Not everything I'm going to tell you is going to work for you. But you're smart enough to say, this is working, this is for me, this isn't. And
Mhm.
so when we give ourselves that power, we give ourselves the power to decide for ourselves instead of allowing other people to decide for us. It opens up so many doors because you can get information from everywhere. And for me, like, I learned how to edit by watching YouTube videos. I learned how to use Audacity by watching YouTube videos. You know, half the stuff I've learned, I've bootstrapped it and learned how to do myself. And I've learned from a lot of coaches, from a lot of people, from a lot of podcasters. And I just take what I need and leave the rest.
Mhm.
So I would say just find a mentor, ask those questions. If you don't have a mentor, feel free to message me. I am more than happy to answer whatever question you have. And if I don't have an answer, I will point you in the right direction.
I love that. What I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Sure.
What is your favorite podcast to listen to other than stories that inspire us?
Of course. Anything true crime.
Ah,
Anything true crime.
true crime.
Yep,
Mm.
I love true crime. And I have two women who are not my coaches, but they've kind of been my coaches. So one of them, her name is Anna, and she's the heart-centered entrepreneur. That's the name of her podcast. And the other one is a woman in Canada named Simona, and her podcast is Happiness Happens. And those are two podcasts that I listen to on the regular. Another one is, I can't think of her name right now, and it's a Christian podcaster, and it's called His Word, My Walk, I think is the name of it. And I like it because they're quick, and it's like if you're going out for a walk, you just pop it in your ear and listen to her. And that one I really like too. Um, but those are, true crime. I really don't have a favorite because I listen to, like, I even go so far as I listen to the Dateline podcast,
Mhm.
which makes it kind of weird because they just took the video, like the show, and put it on a podcast. So sometimes they're like here we see a photograph of, whatever. And you're like, you realize that I can't see the photograph, right? Because I'm listening. So I don't know what the photograph looks like. But, anything true crime is in my wheelhouse. I love it.
Oh, wonderful. Now, before we sign off, can you tell our viewers and listeners how they can connect with you further?
Absolutely. So everything is on my website. It's www.topshelfvirtualservices.com. And that's got all my social handles. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook group called Podcast Strategy with Heart. On my website, you can sign up to a 15-minute clarity call if you have any questions. All my services are there. You can sign up for my blog. I release a blog every Friday on podcasting tips. Yeah, that's basically where I have all of the things. I'm revamping it a little bit. But right now everything's on there. And yeah, feel free, if you find me on Facebook, feel free to connect with me, send me a message, let me know that you heard me on Janice's podcast and you have some questions. And yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. And yeah, that's just my gift, is to help, is what I want to do. It's my
I love
purpose.
that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, you have a story to tell. You need to tell your story because people need to hear you.
Mhm.
And I'm always inspired when I'm able to collaborate with other like-minded entrepreneurs who are not just in it for themselves, they're in it to inspire, collaborate, and really change the perception of something, or just to share your story, because the bottom line is, if you have a passion, if you have a story to share, you must tell it. My name is Janice, the host of Stories that inspire us, and I am truly inspired by my guest, Aeoliana, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. I
You
love
did.
saying
You
it.
did a great job, Janice. Great job.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
you're very welcome, and we shall see you again real soon. Bye for now, everyone.